Welcome back to Acadiana's Morning News on this Friday, November 3rd. Gosh, the year is just flying by. We're almost to the end, and early voting gets underway today.
Yeah, and it's a day early. Normally, early voting will be like on a Saturday, right?
Yeah.
But because we have Veterans Day in there, not going to...
It's an extra day.
Right. It's an extra day of early voting. So, and there's no early voting on Sunday. So you can start early voting today. You can also go Saturday. Don't go Sunday, though.
Yes. So, obviously, we've had another week of rain, some more flooding in our area, and kind of pushes the drainage issue to the forefront. Joining us in studio, Lafayette Mayor President Joel Robideaux. Good morning.
Good morning.
So, one of the issues that's going to be on the ballot in November is going to be this rededication of some money. And it's funny. It's not funny, but it's funny how people hear one thing, see something on Facebook, hear it differently to know, and a lot of people think this is a new tax.
Yeah, or maybe they feel about it differently. You're already paying.
So it's moving part of
the
tax for public health, animal control, and mosquito control. 1.1 mils of that, moving it over to be dedicated to drainage work. Tell us kind of the back end, what you hope to do with it, how much money it's going to raise, and what is kind of your first action item that you'll do with that money.
Thanks. And there's two really important things, and one of them you hit on already, is that this is an existing millage that we've been paying for however long we've been paying for it. So it's no new taxes, which I feel like I was brought into office, say, look, you need to work with the amount of revenue that you have. Don't come to us with any new taxes. Figure out where you can spend the money better.
So you're trying to do that with this.
So trying to do that. But it's important, secondly, to note that the three things that are funded with the existing millage, we've gone through their budgets. We're leaving all of that money to fund those departments in there. And then we're actually leaving a little cushion. There was excess money being paid that was just going into a savings account, and built up a $10 million surplus over the years. So all we're saying is, hey, all that extra that's not going to these departments, that's building up that surplus, we want to dedicate that to drainage.
Okay.
All right. And so it's that piece. So these departments won't be affected in the negative at all. And that $10 million surplus, we're going to take $9 million of it and move it to drainage. So that's one-time money. And then we're going to take $2.5 million every year and move that to drainage. So, over the course of the next 10 years, because millages are renewed every 10 years, that gives me $25 more million to take care of this backlog of maintenance that's out there, because the $7.5 million millage that we currently have for drainage is clearly not enough. I don't think anyone would argue with that. We've built up this huge deferred maintenance. There's a lot of coulees, ditches that need to be cleared of debris and dug out. So the $9 million one-time shot, I think, will help us get some projects done really quickly, in government terms, really quickly.
Yeah,
it'll never be as fast as any of us want. And then the $2.5 million will start to come at the end of 2018 if the ballot initiative passes. And then every year, instead of only having $7.5 million for maintenance, we will have $10 million for maintenance. And again, it's money that all the taxpayers are already paying. We're just saying,
hey, we
want to reallocate it. Right, and the official word is rededicate. We want to reallocate it over to drainage.
So we've been talking about this with you since back in July was when the proposal was first made. And, that wasn't even a full year after the August 2016 floods. So now here we are, give or take, about 15 months later, and we had another issue this week.
Yep.
I can't tell you how many emails and texts we've got, in showing the flooding in their neighborhood. It seems like there's this cluster, though, like around Como, which is not very far from the Costco development. And so many people think that kind of development is what is causing their problems. What is done on the LCG level to make sure that isn't happening, or is it happening?
Yeah, so I think I can lump Bernie in with my age group, basically.
Yes, yes, sir, you can.
Detention ponds didn't exist, and the streets used to serve as the ponds, for flooding purposes. And so I don't know, in the last decade or so, we've had these detention ponds that exist. And so that's required for any new development of certain sizes, certainly any commercial development.
Yeah.
The one thing that we've looked at, and the council has been briefed on it, and I feel certain that we're going to move forward and get something passed, is the ponds are great. I mean, they obviously serve a purpose, because all of that water would be going into some coulee somewhere.
Sure.
And if the coolies can't handle it, then we know what happens.
Right.
The one thing that I think needs to be improved is we need to hold the water in there longer, and let it make its way into the coulee system at a slower pace. Because
it's just draining right out right now.
It goes in, and they have a pretty good sized pipe, and then it makes its way into the coulee system. If we narrow those pipes down, engineers are probably cringing that are listening because I'm oversimplifying things.
But I'm glad you're explaining it that way.
But if we just shrink up the pipes,
right,
and then the water's going to make its way into the coulee systems a lot slower. The ponds will hold the water longer, which will help with drainage. Mm-hmm. That's an ordinance fix. That's got nothing to do with the ballot initiative. That's the other types of things that we as a government has to look at and say, what can we do, outside of, freezing all development until we figure something out. And so those are things that are, we can make the requirement for ponds to be bigger, hold more water. Yeah. We can shrink up the outflow like we had just talked about. So we're looking at all those things also. And then, of course, there's what I'm talking about doing with the reallocation, the rededication, is deferred maintenance. I mean, I can't really have a conversation about what big drainage projects we need if the public's going to say, well, how about you just dig out the coulee behind my house that hadn't been dug out?
Absolutely.
And that's the point, yeah.
That's right. So we have to go get all of those things done so we can then move to the next level of conversation. And this ballot initiative will allow us to get a lot of that work done so we can really start to have some serious conversations about drainage across Lafayette Parish.
Mm-hmm. So a wrench in this, it seems like, might be on some of the feedback that we have about this, that the CREATE initiative is part of this as well. Mm-hmm. And that's something that's new, but it's also part of this money, the $500,000 one time to kind of get this rolling. Are you worried at all that the CREATE initiative as part of this will cause it to fail?
No, again, 96% of the money is going to drainage. We think it's a smart investment to put some money into our cultural economy, which is our second largest economy. Mm-hmm. It, especially with oil and gas and the prospects of where the oil and gas industry is going to go, there's really no end in sight. We're all just hoping that we've hit the floor and it doesn't continue to get worse. And the cultural economy for us is a very stable economy. It's something we control. It's something that we can brand ourselves, advertise ourselves. We can do better and bring in a lot more revenue. And it's something that we feel like, if we're strategic and if we have vision and we do it right, it's going to benefit us for a really long term. And it'll provide us with a much more stable base for government to fund itself, to where we're not also making cuts and then having money when oil and gas is good and then making cuts. And so I think it's a smart investment. Sure. Yeah, I mean, look, as it stands right now, our cultural economy is bigger than the healthcare economy. It's bigger than the innovation and technology industry here. I'd love for those things to pass it up. That would be great. And with the baby boomers and all, maybe healthcare will. But to ignore the second largest industry in this community just doesn't make any sense at all to me. We've peeled off a small piece of that to start doing some strategic investments and to capitalize on this really unique culture that we have in a way that's going to give us more money for roads and drainage and all those things that government needs to pay for.
Very fascinating discussion. That's certainly true. So the backlog would be first, the deferred projects that let's face it, you can't you can't do everything that you want to do in government, depending on money. And
like in 6 months, too, how people would love it.
Right.
We want it done before the end of the year. Never going to happen.
Sometimes it just doesn't work that way.
I do want to ask you, as we wrap up,
sure.
We're joined by Mayor President Joel Robideaux. I'm actually going on this pilgrimage with Lafayette Travel up to New York next week for the big culinary trails 2017. We're actually doing the show there live from Times Square next Tuesday. And I'm just kind of interested in your thought. How cool is it to have people from our area on the national stage, Acadiana? It's just great. It looks good for us.
It is. It is great. And again, the Francophone communities, a lot of the foodies out there, they know about Lafayette. But the rest of the globe still, they hear us, they think swamp, they think we go to working boats, and they, you know, and so we know that we can invest some money and do a much better job of letting people know just how incredible a community we have. And so when things like this happen that you're going to, yeah, it's always really, really rewarding to see Lafayette represented so well.
I hope that you make lots of friends, Rob, and lots of those people know, because, you know, the first tourist destination in Louisiana, the number one, is New Orleans, but the number two is Lafayette and the Acadiana region. So you invite as many people as you want.
Can they stay in your house?
Okay.
Should they bring tents in your backyard or something?
They can bring tents, and they can tent up in the backyard, provided we get a waiver from Mayor President Robideaux.
Can we get that?
Can we get a waiver for visitors in my backyard?
I think it's one of those things where you don't ask. Yeah, you know, I think it's better that you just
do it and then ask for forgiveness.
Ask for forgiveness,
that would probably work better for me.
Love that. Hey, Mayor President Joel Robideaux, thanks for taking some time for us this morning.
Appreciate the opportunity.